Hi, welcome to my H7 debugging video. So here we can see my circuit layouts. On the left is my JK flip-flop circuits, and my right is the external clock circuit. Okay, so as we can see here, there's the 4 outputs of the JK flip-flops. My first concern was the flickering on the outputs. Everything but Q4 showed some flickering. So I deduced that this was an issue with the NOT gate that I had initially. I guess one of the legs were kind of broken, so I replaced it with a NAND gate. It worked a bit better, but still showed some flickering. I just fixed that through fixing my clock circuit rewire. Okay, so I'm just showing my layout for the circuit. As we can see here, I have an LED placed on my external circuit. That was just to show whether the clock signal was actually being read by the circuit and whether it was actually giving an input to the or influencing the output of my Q1 to 4, which it wasn't in that case because the LED was not on and it wasn't blinking. But we'll see that fixed later on. Here it's on permanently, which is also not something I wanted because the clock should go from low to high and low to high and kind of have a pattern like that. But I fixed it by rewiring the external circuit again, rebuilding it again. Here we see some output from the clock signal. Again, it's faulty. We can also see that it's faulty through our Handtech display. Here, since I was having some issues with my outputs, I figured I should measure the voltage output of the header board because Peter mentioned that the header board and the Handtech AWG usually have issues. And it all came out 5 volts, as we'll see. So yeah, here we'll see it's at 5 volts or 4.99. So all of that's working fine. And then I just redo this process for every bus. So that's 4 buses since I'm using 2 breadboards. And we also see a good clock signal because the green LED that's showing the clock signal is blinking. And I continue to measure the voltages as we see here, but we can still see the blinking of the LED. So we see that that clock signal output is fixed. So here on the Handtech, we can see that channel 1 and 2 are both in phase. This was an issue with where I placed my probes. It was essentially measuring the same thing, which was the clock signal, the clock output. And then here we see that we have a weird output for Q1 to 4. This clock signal is fine, as we can see on the green LED on the furthest left, but this output and nothing on Q2, 3, and 4 was changing according to the clock signal, and Q1 alternated from being in phase with the clock signal and then out of phase. But it had a consistent pattern. It just wasn't what I was looking for according to my analytical. So here we have Q1 to 4 starting from left to right. These are the outputs that I got after rewiring some stuff on the external clock circuit that were connected to the JK flip-flop circuit. It seemed I had missed some of the placements. So we have a coherent pattern, not exactly what I was looking for. And then this here is another output that I got after rewiring all the JK flip-flops and redoing it just because it was hard to decipher what was going wrong because there were so many wires and everything. So usually rebuilding it would work, but in this case, it just didn't. And I rechecked everything that I did earlier just to make sure I'm not having any other issues here. So I realized that the second probe was actually initially measuring the same thing as the first probe, which is the clock output. So I have moved the second probe, sorry, it's a bit hard to see, to where the output of Q2 is, so that I can see, like, compare it with the clock's output. And I'm getting a pretty good reading, but it still kind of doesn't match from what I can tell from the pattern. But yeah. So we just saw a few of the outputs from all of the debugging methods, like when I showed the 4 LEDs that show Q1, 2, 3, and 4, each time I rebuilt the circuit or rewired something. And they all shared one thing in common. As I progressed with debugging, they got closer and closer to what I wanted to see. Something like, some of the sequences were in the order that they should have been, as we can read off of the analytical portion in my report. But then again, some states would be skipped, and sometimes it would move on to the other loop when there really should be no connection between the two loops. None of the loops share any states or anything like that, and it's not a continuous chain in any way. It's just two separate loops, so it was quite odd seeing those outputs. But I believe I've went through all the debugging processes and rebuilding it multiple times just to make sure, because it was quite hard reading through all the wires there. And it just ended up not working. And so I'll finish it off by showing the Hantec output that I got from Q2, which is pretty clear and closest to what I wanted to see. And to get this clear output, I use the transistor method shown in the topic notes. Thank you.